do it for Miami Dolphins. The pressure, he's in trouble. Loses the football. Touchdown! Got it! You have got to be kidding me. Jalen Waller, the Dolphin touchdown. Throwing deep upfield on the near side, man open, touchdown. Looking deep, he's got it there. Touchdown! The run from Tua Tagovailoa. Touchdown! He's going deep. He's got it for a touchdown again. Touchdown! Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. Let's go!
You're listening to Fin Too Deep.
Tua back to throw. Blitz coming. They get to him. No, he takes off running. And he's in. Touchdown, Miami.
With the sixth pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Miami Dolphins select Jalen Waddle.
Giving you unfiltered, informed, and controversial takes on the Miami Dolphins and the NFL Draft. Here's Reason and Neal.
What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason, and we are back here for another episode as we dive Fin Too Deep. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, the legendary Neal Driscoll. How you doing, Neal? How you feeling, bro?
Dude, I'm so upset. Tyreek Hill might retire in 3 years. What am I going to do with myself?
Watch them pay Jalen Waddle as it aligns perfectly with our plans.
Man, I mean, what do we? I mean, we are getting closer and closer to the NFL Draft. I mean, man, like for me this month, it couldn't go by fast enough. I love the whole draft week. I still wish it was on one day, like the old school day where it was on Saturday and Sunday, and you could watch it kind of all weekend. But I love, I can't wait for night one. We'll be interested to see how the quarterbacks shake up, and then day two to me is all about what did the Dolphins do.
Yeah, I want to ask you: are you a Masters fan?
You know what's funny is I'm not a golfer,
But
I think the Masters is super cool.
Why is everyone talking about the menu, Neal? Everyone keeps talking about how expensive it is to get there, but how cheap the food is.
Well, because the food is like a lost leader. The most expensive thing on the menu, I think, is $2.50.
Yeah, it was the barbecue sandwich. I think is like $3.
But I think what they do, dude, is make over $300 million on merchandise. Like they sell those polos for $150, $200. They're hard to get. You can't get them online. You can only get them there. But I think the Masters is really, really an awesome event. The weather looks awful for Saturday and Sunday, which kind of sucks. But I think it's a fun event, and it's one of those things that, I act like I'm a big fan of it. I barely know anything about golf, but it gives me a reason to sit around and watch some TV. So, it is a good event. It's my favorite golf event of the year. And, I'm on old school. I'm a Tiger guy. I love Tiger Woods. So, I'm always secretly hoping that he can pull it out. But probably going to be some tough sledding for him here this year.
Before we get into everything, people haven't had a chance to really hear your thoughts on Mac Jones being shocked when they tried to tell us, even some in our fan base, that Mac Jones was better than Tua. How the tables have turned. And the irony of the same coaching tree, the root of the coaching tree doing to Mac Jones what was done as Tua, as we see that starting to unfold. And people haven't heard your thoughts on Durham Smythe's re-up, and if you think that affects their play at tight end early on in the draft. So the floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah, so on the Mac Jones thing, look, Mac Jones, to me is a bottom half for sure, probably bottom quarter of the league quarterback. There's nothing he really does that excites me. As a Dolphins fan, I love playing against Mac Jones. I don't think there's a lot of things he can do to hurt you when Bailey Zappi is getting the locker room, pushing for him to start. That's a bad scenario. And frankly, we talk about who the greatest coaches are in football, and Bill Belichick gets a lot to do, but without Tom Brady, that resume looks pretty bland. And I'm not going to crap on the guy.
10 years without Brady. I believe he's missed the playoffs 8 of those 10 years without Brady. Sorry,
yeah,
continue.
so it's one of those things, but I hope that they don't make a run at Lamar Jackson, which I don't think just is going to make sense for them at this time. But I kind of wish they would stick with Mac Jones for the next 5 years, and I keep him here. But at the end of the day, Mac Jones, I mean, it's laughable that there's people that honestly probably even in our own fan base think he's as good as Tua. Like, I think Tua can probably go out there and play right-handed and be as good as Mac Jones. So
he is naturally right-handed.
And honestly, I don't think Mike White's far off Mac Jones, to be honest. So that's why the Patriots aren't a threat to us. That's why we go out there, and ever since Tom Brady's left, we beat them and handle them pretty easily. And that's probably not going to change at any time soon. On Durham Smythe, look, I don't think that changes anything about the tight end room. Durham Smythe is a really good number 2 tight end. He's one of the guys that does his job and does his job really well. The money that we throw at him is not big time money. It's good money for a guy who's a homegrown, home developed player, right? That has done everything you've asked of him since he's been here and more. Bottom line, he actually outplayed Mike Gesicki last year, and that can't go unwarranted. Eric Saubert is on a 1-year deal. There's nothing that I've seen out of Tanner Conner that excites me. They're probably still going to draft a guy, and I think it's a luxury, but it's great to have Durham Smythe as a guy who's your second tight end. So I think that's well deserved, and it even brought down his cap a little bit this year, so gave us a little bit more cap room for this year. So, I think good for Durham. It's good to see him kind of stay around the team. I like that the Dolphins are keeping continuity. I think continuity is so important in football, and too often you've seen this team, for lack of a better term, blow it up almost all the time. You kind of start over, get rid of half their roster, mass exoduses across the board. I'm happy that Durham Smythe's staying here, and the money screams that he's not going to be, a starter caliber player here. Like, you saw the money that got out there in the market, which wasn't really good, but they all still made more money than Durham Smythe's getting paid. So good for the Dolphins for wrapping up one of their own.
Yeah, I think it's and we'll talk about the rumored trade in a little bit here down the line, but it just goes further to show how much they really didn't value Gesicki internally. Like, when you look at the word coming out of who they tried to trade for, when you look at and when they tried to trade for him, and then you look at now Smythe getting paid, and Smythe keeps getting new money in Miami while Gesicki was living off that rookie deal. How many times have we re-upped them now? Isn't this the second time we've re-upped them?
Yeah.
This is the second time we've re-upped them.
And Reason, it's kind of a sore subject to me because, franchising Mike Gesicki for that money, right? You could have had a Dalvin Cook in here last year, and you could have.
We're gonna talk when we talk about that trade later. We're gonna talk about that, bro. Because I got a lot to say about that. What you're just talking about right now, because I think that trade scenario showed that was a desperation tag, bro. That was like, okay, just tag him because we have him. Right. That's what that seemed like.
Yeah, there was no plan for him. It was a really bad use of the financial resources.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's one of the moves that Greer made that probably didn't really pan out. It wasn't, I'll say this about Mike. At least he was a professional when he was here. He didn't let, his lack of impact on the team really affect it too much. I mean, there was definitely some poor body language out there. He blocked almost anyone on Dolphins Twitter that said anything negative about him. But at the end of the day,
a block, brother.
I think that's going to lead into this next thing, and this is why it's really important that I think that they get a deal done with Christian Wilkins rather than live on that franchise tag. I think that the franchise tag is a very dangerous tool. And, what I see is a lot of times when that franchise tag is used, you see players that are good players get great money. And, the first thing that pops to mind, remember Cam Robinson from Jacksonville. He's probably a middle of the pack left tackle, but he got elite money when he got franchise tagged. So I think, there's no structuring around the franchise tag. That amount that hits your cap is predetermined, and it's not flexible. When you structure a contract, you have the ability to structure it and have flexibility on how you want it to look. The franchise tag is a dangerous number because we all knew as soon as that number Mike Gesicki got, we knew that was bad money. We hope that Mike Gesicki turned it around the system. But, you know, he didn't even come close to living up to that franchise tag number. It wasn't even close.
And we all said to ourselves, if anyone's going to make him worth that franchise tag number, it's the guys we got in-house and their history of producing high-quality, high-performing, high-production tight ends. And if anyone was going to get that out of him, it was going to be those guys.
Well,
see, that's why I'm not sitting here being like, oh, you know, if Lamar goes there, he's going to turn him into Mark Andrews. Brother, John Embry.
Yeah,
no, John Embry, you know what I mean, from a production level, right? Not from a blocking, but you know what I'm talking about. Because Dolphin fans, remember, you heard it every offseason, and you know I'd always push back. Dolphin fans, every offseason I had here, he's a top 10 tight end. He's a top, where? In what category?
He had that one season reason when he had 850 yards and I think 8 touchdowns, maybe it was, where he started to look like he was blossoming into that player, but then we never saw that Mike Gesicki again. We never even seen someone who came close. And you know what?
And let's be honest, bro, his 2021 production, his 2020 and his 2021 production was all because everyone else got hurt.
Well, and
there was no one else to throw the football to.
It doesn't really even matter what we think. 2 regimes that have coached him both said that he's not the man.
Yeah, but okay, so this goes back to my original point that I was making before we went on that little side thing there. If Embry, who going all the way back to working with Tony Gonzalez, he made Chris Cooley, he made Jordan Cameron, right? Frank Smith made Darren Waller, and those are just a few names. I mean, he's got a list of about 8 guys John Embry made, right? Kittle helped with Kittle, right? McDaniel played a part in Kittle. All these guys, they made all these guys and had a hand in all these guys. If they weren't going to get Gesicki right, or if they were going to come to the conclusion that he wasn't worth making a centerpiece or a highlighted factor in this offense, if they came to that conclusion, I don't need to be told anything else, man.
Well, and
they're
look,
just verifying what I already knew.
Well, and it's also, you know, the thing with Mike Gesicki that really made it that you know, I'll say the Dolphins put him in a position not to succeed is we can't figure out that right tackle position. So we need a tight end that kind of stays in and chips.
Yeah.
When Mike Gesicki was in there, right, we knew it was a pass because they flexed him out to the slot and, you know, he ran routes. Whenever he was, you know, when it was a running play, they had Durham Smythe in. You know, it made our offense easy to diagnose from the defensive side of the ball. But I do think the lack of having a quality right tackle probably put him on an island where, you know, like, look, he was never going to get better as a blocker, man. Like, we all tried to find it, and we watched the tape, and I mean, like,
no.
I mean, I do, like, he's a big dude, but he doesn't have.
Do you remember how many reps he had in the combine, Neil? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
He had 22 reps. If I told you that, would you even believe that right now? Would you even think he has the functional strength for the That's my thing, bro. The thing that always tapped my ass the wrong way about Gesicki when he was here, and why I always have a sour taste, Neil, how many people in our comments right now, we got over 250 people, how many people in our comments do you think wish they had those kind of athletic abilities and traits? Like, and I hate, he's just another case of a guy given all of God's gifts, but he has, listen, people, well, he would stay on the jug machine after practices. Okay. Catching should be on the lowest priority of this guy's list. All right. Every physical aspect of the game, he never improved on. That was my thing with Gesicki. He never looked like he turned any weakness coming out of the draft into I'm not even asking a strength, just competence. Like, you know, he didn't improve in key areas, man. And it just, listen, what everyone say, I don't care about jug machines. That just comes down to work ethic, bro. Listen, there's programs. We know, Neil, Nick Hicks, all these different people. You know, Duke Manyweather. There are people that are available to all these different players, and there are positions. Look at, you know, you see the Golden Feet people that have been working with Jalen Waddle and stuff over the last 2 seasons. There are people that are available at every position and can help grow you in any aspect of your game. And I never we used to rip on Jakeem Grant for being a workout warrior in the offseason, but at least he was working out. How many videos did we see of Gesicki? You know, we'd even see Byron Jones and Xavier Howard putting out videos of them trying to get better. Nick Needham always putting out videos but Gesicki on a yacht or running through a garage trying to catch a football thrown over a house. Like, that's what we were seeing from him. I felt, you want my honest opinion, bro? My honest opinion? Do I think he gave us 100%? Sure, in his own way. But did he really give himself 100% and in turn give us 100%? Because if you didn't give 100% to your own game, how are you giving 100% to the team? And listen, people can call me old school or whatever or hate on me for that. But I just look at a guy who, brother, I mean, look at Christian Wilkins. We'll talk about him. That guy has gotten better every year. Jerome Baker. And everyone knows I'm not a fan of Jerome Baker. He is a wide 9 will linebacker, okay? And he got thrown into schemes that didn't fit him. But you know what?
Better.
He's gotten better every year, even if it's been incrementally, because he's put in the work and he's trying to get better. Look at Robert Hunt. You remember Robert Hunt and all our interior guys taking boxing and trying to get better? Like, you see what I'm talking about here? Like, it gets like he was the only one.
Well, what's frustrating for me is that he would make the wow plays that would intrigue you, right? Those tough catches, his athleticism will be on display, but he couldn't make those bang bang plays that mattered. He wasn't a crunch time player. He wasn't clutch. And a guy who has his size, man, and athleticism, you have to be able to create after the catch. I'm pretty sure I could tackle Mike Gesicki consistently, man, and that's and that's not good. You know what I mean? Like, that's not good for you. So I just think it's one of those things that, like, I don't wish Mike Gesicki bad will, but you did go to the Patriots, so I definitely wish that you're going to get shut down 2 times a year.
Keep those head up in the seams, baby. Keep them head up.
Yeah, he ain't going to go over the middle. But at the end of the day, like, at the end of the day, I appreciate his service here. He gave me hope, but he never delivered all the way. And that's just how I felt of it. I at that one season, I was like, we got a guy. And then the encore wasn't even close.
I'll just go over the last 20 years. Not even in the same realm in terms of guys who put on that jersey, like Randy McMichael.
Love Randy.
And Clay. I'll even go Clay. I'll even go with Clay, who went to the Bills. Okay? That guy was almost complete for us, right? Like, I'll even go that far. Not even in the same realm, bro. And all it was just wasted potential. That's all that's going to be remembered as, like, all those traits, all those tools for that's what it's going to be remembered as.
Right.
And it sucks. It sucks, man, because that guy, he got all the tools that if he put the work in, he could be a top 10 or top 5.
Well, here's the funny thing. He went to a team where I think he's going to be just equally less as effective as he was in Miami. If he was a smart guy, he would have taken the same amount of money and went to a team like the Packers,
the Chargers,
or the Chiefs, or the Chargers, where somewhere who's going to get the ball and be, and be utilized as the seam threat that he should be becoming. But look, what he got paid in free agency speaks a lot about what the league thought of him. It really does. I mean, we can say all these opinions, and you and I have talked about this offline. The only thing that matters in football is guaranteed money. That tells you the story every single time. And, he got some incentive heavy deal that makes it look a little bit more jacked up. But at the end of the day, I think he really only got $4.5 million guaranteed for next year. And that's $1 million more than Durham Smythe, to put in perspective. That's how the league viewed him. So at the end of the day, my opinion doesn't matter. The 32 teams that run NFL teams, they didn't value him more than $4.5 million a year.
It's true. So let's get into the money talk. Because we talked yesterday and you were hearing some things about Christian Wilkins and the Dolphins in terms of money in extension talks. So floor is yours, my friend.
If the old cartoons, when you have the devil on one shoulder and the angel on the other, I'm hearing conflicting things. I have someone who's not linked to the Dolphins. He's actually linked to the Colts, who had told me that he had heard that Christian Wilkins was pretty far off on a deal with Miami. And you hear that from an outsider, but here's what you also got to think. There's a lot of factors when you think of a contract. There's contract length, there's money, there's guaranteed money, and there's the structure, right? There's a lot of those things that go into a contract. When you're working on a deal that's going to be 5 years, $90-some million, there's a lot of nuances that you have to pay attention to. So things can get far apart pretty quickly, but they can come together. Now, from someone on the Dolphin side that's been very reliable, that you and I both respect, I've heard that the Dolphins are very close to Christian Wilkins. What I think is that the Dolphins want to keep Christian Wilkins, and they're trying to make that happen. And I think they'd like to have that happen before the NFL draft. Because I think what you have to do as any organization is you have to see where you stand heading in the draft in terms of your resources. And if you are there and you feel that you're going to get a deal done, defensive tackle doesn't even matter in the draft. You have Zach Sealer. But if you see the Dolphins, we come on here, we say tight end, offensive line, running back. But if they take a defensive tackle, one of those day 2 picks, that tells me there's not a lot of confidence in getting that done. How I think the dust will settle is I think they'll get something worked out with Christian Wilkins, because you know why? I think Christian Wilkins wants to be here. I think he's earned that contract based off that play. And I think above all, he's actually one of the best leaders on this team. And the energy, when you see a guy score a touchdown and you see Christian Wilkins beat everyone down there, it's like, holy shit, this dude really loves this game. He loves this team. And he kind of was the symbol of the change of the guard from the Dolphins being a doormat to being one of the – look, in the last 3 years, they're one of the most winningest teams in the AFC, right? We saw that list that came out. They are the only – them, the Chiefs, and one other team were the only 3 teams that have had 3 consecutive winning seasons, right? So you see this, and everything points in the direction of Christian Wilkins staying here. But they got to get the money agreed upon. I don't think this is something the Dolphins want to linger out. We see this too often. And when you look at the positional value in the NFL, there's quarterback, edge rusher, left tackle, corner, premium positions. Inside linebacker, interior offensive lineman, and defensive tackle are usually 3 that where you could find pretty good replacements out there for reasonable money. Not saying that I think you could go find a replacement for Christian Wilkins. I'm just saying that when you look at the infrastructure of the NFL and positional values, at the end of the day, I hope Christian Wilkins stays here. I want that to be the next Dolphin jersey that I don and go on NFL Shop and buy. But I do think it's something that needs to happen in the next 2.5 weeks to feel confident that, because when it comes to the draft, and there's a lot of teams having phone calls, and someone picks up the call and says, Dolphins, you have the least amount of picks in this whole draft. We'll give you 2 top 100 picks. One of them's in the end of the first round. One's in the second round for Christian Wilkins. Things can change pretty fast. So there's always going to be a part of me that, I'm 75% of the way that he's going to get signed, but I'm not naive enough to think that it's a slam dunk because of a lot of factors.
Well, and one of those big factors is Durham Payne's new deal,
Payne's
right?
Contract. I mean, that's a lot of money, man. And Durham Payne, if you take so Christian Wilkins was a way better player than Durham Payne last year. He was probably a top 3 defensive tackle in football last year. But if you take that money out of the equation, I mean, that season, and you kind of put the totality of their careers, Durham Payne's probably been a little bit better of a player.
He offers more from a pass rush standpoint. That's from what I've heard, that's always going to be the sticking point of Christian Wilkins getting over $20 million is what he offers from a pass rush standpoint. Now he's complete as a run defender. He makes tackles. He's reliable making tackles. Like, he's good. But when you talk about from a pass rush standpoint, he's not as quite complete as a guy like Payne right now. That's what I think is going to be the sticking point when you get to, right? Because what did Payne sign? What was it? A 4-year, $90 million?
$90 million. It's a lot of money.
How much of that was, and a lot of that was guaranteed too, right?
It was. And here, you want to sign him also before Jeffrey Simmons goes and gets the bag of money. Because when you're looking at a class of players that are in the same position from the same draft class, right? There's a gamemanship to it to make sure that you pay someone before the other. Like, if I'm the Bengals right now, I'm doing everything in my will to get Joe Burrow signed before Justin Herbert. Because I think typically the Chargers will probably pay Justin Herbert more money. The Bengals are a very frugal franchise. They have been forever. So, if, say, the Chargers gave Justin Herbert a contract that he didn't deserve, like, not that he don't deserve, but that's probably inflated, then Joe Burrow's price tag just goes up. Because if I'm Joe Burrow, I'm like, Herbert got that? Well, what does that mean for me? Yeah. So, that's where, you want to sign Ed Oliver's another guy that's going to be on the market for a contract. Quinnen Williams, when he gets his contract, you want to make sure you sign him before those.
Should have taken care of this last offseason. I mean,
yeah, and that's what I think we need to learn. We can't wait till this goes to a because look, we can franchise tag Christian Wilkins next year, but then it's an $18 million cap hit. So if we sign him, it creates some cap room for this year, probably around $4 million in cap space. But then you go into the offseason knowing that you just locked up one of your franchise defensive players and you don't have to worry about it. And that's where I think it's always better to get these deals done earlier for players that you know are part of the plan.
Yeah.
Like Mike Gesicki, they did the right thing. They said, we're going to tag you. We're going to try to replace you with Darren Waller, and we'll talk about that and rescind that franchise tag if we can make that happen. But if not, we're going to give you a year to prove yourself. And if that doesn't work out, we're going to go let you test the market. But Christian Wilkins already, I think, proved that he's got to be here. And that's why I'm like, let's get this done. Let's get this done. We know what it's going to cost. He's going to get around that Durham Payne money. And it could be a little bit less because we know that there's no state taxes. They can structure it. They can have all that. But they know the parameters of where they need to be. They both want it to work. Let's just make it happen. That's good news. When that comes across the timeline, I think that's a good day for Dolphins fans. So let's get that done.
Yeah, the whole thing, with like I said, when I heard about the Carlos Brooks top 30 visit before it was announced, and when I heard we were sniffing around the interior defensive line, which is over the last week and a half has really started to be pushed by the mainstream media a little bit in South Florida. I was told back then it was more so of like, looking to replace Ogba because he ain't going to be here. That's why they didn't give him and Baker.
Yeah, this is Ogba and Baker's last year's on the
Yeah. It was more so Ogba, Seiler, and what's his face, Raekwon. And with Wilkins, I was told, they believe they're a contender right now, so that gives them even more reason that they want to get Wilkins locked up. We just always knew the sticking point was going to be the money, and it was because of Durham Payne's deal that came through. We knew this was going to be a talking point. You know what I mean? Now, listen, I've said this before, I'll say it again. If you can lock him up for 16, 17, 18 million, do it. When you start getting a 22.5 million, bro, when you already have Zach Seiler on the team, who's not going to be signing for anywhere near that, and it gives you very similar production. I don't know, bro. When we start getting into 22.5 million, I got pause, bro. I got pause, dude.
Well, the way that I think it is we see what Ogba is cap hit. It's 18 million next year, right? I think that's what it's got to be for Christian Wilkins. I think that's what
I agree with that.
Him, and I think you got to make that happen. When we say that it's attractive for players because of no state taxes, another part of that is that you can offer less and that player makes more money still. So they strategically should figure out how to make that happen.
Yeah. Shout out to Neal for still having a landline in 2023, bro. You got to respect it.
I'm at the frame shop right now. For those that don't know, I own a small frame shop a couple miles from my house. So I come here because it's silence, and we're getting hit in Baltimore with a freaking nasty storm, man. My power's going to be out tonight. It's going to be. Oh, yeah, dude, it's been miserable. The Oriole game got moved today because of the incoming weather. They've already canceled all the baseball games for the rec tomorrow. So they're predicting it's going to be nuts. And where we live, man, I have acres of trees that surround me, and they terrify me because some of them are really, really close to my house, man. So it's nuts. But yeah, I digress. Christian Wilkins, I like. Let's get him here. Let's get him here. Let's get him wrapped up. But I'm with you. There is a limit to any player, and I know that the fandom of people will tell you, like, "Oh my God, you're crazy. You're an idiot for saying that." But like the reality of it is that the $1 million man, everyone's got a price, right? Like that is the truth of this. Is that there has to be parameters. I don't think Christian Wilkins though is going to be that type of guy. I think that he's going to want a fair market value, and I think that's what we'll see.
Yeah. All right. So let's keep it moving here. Tyreek Hill. A couple of things came out from one of his recent podcast interviews. So let's get into that. The first thing we'll cover here, Samuel wants to know, are you getting hit with those tornadoes that hit Mississippi and Louisiana?
Yeah, I don't think so, but the wind is like really picking up. And it was last week. I think we had something one day around 60-mile-per-hour winds. So that's where it gets kind of, gets crazy. My house is up on this hill, and we're higher up in the elevation, and that wind really hits us hard. And, it's nuts, man. I'll stand on my back deck sometimes and I'll be like, holy crap, the world's ending. And then, I'll text my mom who lives 15 miles away, and she's like, barely could tell here. It's like one of those things, but I think we'll be okay.
All right, so let's get into this. Let's get into the first talking point, because there were a couple to go over, and the one that has got everyone talking today. And I actually, when I knew we were doing this show, I knew this was going to be one of our main talking points yesterday when I heard the interview while everyone was talking about him talking trash to KC, and we'll get to that in a second. I knew this was going to be the one that was going to set people off. So let's play the clip, and then let's talk about it, Neal. All right?
Yep.
So you're going to, this is what, year 8 for you?
Year 8, baby.
Year 8. How many more years do you think you can play? Do you want to play?
I'm going for 10, man. I'm gonna finish out this contract with the Dolphins, man, and then I'm gonna call it quits. I want to go into the business side.
You want to be in the coaching too, right?
Yeah, but not for long though. Like I want to do so many things in my life, bro.
You want to come back and help us coach me and Gary high school football?
Can I bring my boys?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I will bring the little cheetahs, the little soul runners.
So hey, listen. So now we're making a good, strong push for a really, really well coached team.
We got to travel the world though, bro.
Can Soul Runner sponsor us?
Yeah.
So what's your number one after football business idea or kind of goal after football?
So I really want to get into like the gaming space. Like I really want to get huge in that, and that's kind of what I'm doing right now. I'm using my platform, creating a gaming team. Which isn't launched yet. It should launch by the end of this month.
So what are your thoughts there? I mean, you look at how it lines up, Neal. It lines up perfectly for us in terms of Waddle's extension. So it would actually be at the end of his contract, which I believe would run out in 2026?
Yeah, so I think that's the first thing I was going to say. He literally is signed through 2026, which means he's really under contract for 4 years. That 2026 contract, though, he has a $52 million cap hit.
So he knows what's coming.
And we save $45 million if he's not on the team. But you could restructure. But look, I'll say this to start, right? Tyreek Hill talks a lot of trash. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't bother me because he backs it up.
Yeah.
And our team and this organization has lacked that type of swagger for way too long. So I actually am okay with it. Now, he talks a lot. And there's a lot of times where I'm like, all right, Tyreek, like you telling the Browns you wanted to go there, like all this stuff. Like I don't take a lot of it too literal either. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like people talk and say a lot of shit in life, and a lot of them don't mean half the things they say. But the reality is that I think Tyreek Hill is only going to be on the Miami Dolphins for 3 years anyway. So it's good to hear that he plans on retiring because I don't want to play against him. So, I always like to tell people this, like football, just because these guys are good at this is their job.
And he's already done everything too.
Right. Make your money and get out. And if you want to preserve your body, because look, football players take a beating. Those summer training camps aren't fun. No. Like me personally, man, if I can make enough money at 31 years old and get out with life-changing money, just not for me and my family. Like a lot of people crap on Andrew Luck for what he did. Andrew Luck made a decision that was best for him and his family.
Let me ask you this. Let's say he wins the Super Bowl here. Does he retire a Dolphin or a Chief?
Probably a Chief, but if he wins 2 here, a Dolphin.
Would he though? Because did he ever have 1,700 yards as a Chief in a season?
I don't know. I don't know. And it seems like there's a little animosity
because he's
pay him.
Yeah, because he's gonna break like receiving records in Miami too. So he's gonna be like, if we win a Super Bowl, he's gonna be a Ring of Honor player. He's gonna get all of that allure as a Dolphin, right? He's gonna go down as one of the greatest Dolphins ever, even if he's only here for 4 years and wins a Super Bowl.
Right. And the reason we talked about this last week, the window that we have now and the next window. And the window we have now includes a Tyreek Hill. The next window might not, because you have to pay Jalen Waddle. And in 4 years, 3 years, I'm not so sure Jalen Waddle's not on the same level as Tyreek Hill.
Yeah,
and that's a lot of praise. So, I think that aligns perfectly, because that's going to be the time where you're going to say, great, we're going to Jalen Waddle's become our pure number 1, and we're going to be in the draft looking for our pure number 2. And that's what we drafted Jalen Waddle to be at number 6 overall. We didn't draft him to be the Robin to a Batman.
Yeah, I agree.
And I'm not insulting Jalen Waddle. I think Jalen Waddle is one of the best players on this football team. He's actually my favorite player on this team besides Tua Tagovailoa, Jalen Waddle. I think Jalen's amazing, and I think that is, and I think it's easy to sit here today and say what you want to do in 3 years. But how many times have you made goals for yourself in 3 years and, everyone's got a plan till they get punched in the face, Mike Tyson, right? Like at the end of the day, I don't take anyone who's predicting 3 years out because variables always change. So good for Tyreek for having a plan. I hope it works out for him. Just win us a Super Bowl in the next 3 years, man. And we're great.
For sure. Shout out to Philip Marrow for becoming a channel member. Welcome to the Hall of Fame level. I appreciate you. Thank you very much. All right. So another part from that podcast, and it's led to a little exchange between him and Chris Jones. This part of the podcast, he was feeling it. By the way, smash that like button, subscribe if you're new. Over 360 of you in the room. Man. So let's play this clip for everyone so they can hear him trash talk KC and let them know what time it is.
Chiefs Kingdom, when the Miami Dolphins come to Arrowhead Stadium this year, guess what we gonna do? Guess what we gonna do? I hate to throw up the peace sign against y'all. I hate to do it. But guess what? I'm gonna be y'all worst enemy that day. You better change the signals. I know every signal y'all got.
Damn, he is out here laying it out, talking trash, and he actually ended up getting a response back, and the response was Chris Jones on Twitter saying the only peace sign he throwing up is walking to the bus after the game. Bro, this is heating up. Where are we going to open up the season on Thursday night against the Kansas City Chiefs, or Monday night? Is this going to be? I want Monday night. Screw everyone wants Thursday night. I want that first Monday nighter. Give me that first Monday nighter.
I'll say this, like I said earlier, the thing I like about Tyreek is he talks the talk and he backs it up. Like, the good news for him is that Chris Jones can't catch him. The bad news for him, if Chris Jones ever called him, Chris Jones is a bad, bad man. I won't want to piss off Chris Jones, but I think this is just friendly gamesmanship between the two guys.
They all get along.
At the end of the day, though, I think there's some seriousness there that I think the Miami Dolphins are on par with the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, I will say that. Like, I think the Dolphins are.
We almost came back and beat him a couple years ago with a much more inferior team.
Tyreek's the reason we lost. Tyreek,
Clayton Fledglam.
Right? Yeah, burning. I'm a homer, man, and I'm okay if people call me that. I think the Dolphins are the best team in the AFC right now, and that's my God's honest belief, because I think what they've done, the coaching staff they've added, Vic Fangio and Jalen Ramsey, to me, are two elite ads. I did not expect two elite ads. The Vic Fangio ad was enough to get me excited about this defense. Jalen Ramsey on this defense, I like even getting like an Emmanuel Ogbah back, right? Even throwing in David Long Jr. Like, I'm telling you, like, this defense, like, they're deep at corner. I know that the guy got on everyone's bad side. I am telling you, around week 6, half the Dolphin fan base is going to be like, holy shit, that Deshaun Elliott's a dude. Like, I am telling you, he just needs to shut his mouth about the quarterback and play football. But I am telling you, this defense, if they make the leap, and I keep saying this on every podcast that we have, every YouTube show, they make the leap that the offense made last year, we're going to be hoisting a Lombardi. Health, look, we can't predict health, so I don't do that. Like, I don't.
And on both sides of the ball, I keep trying to stress to people, Neal, yes, the quarterback's important, and it's very imperative he stays healthy. But we learned last year we got to stay healthy in the secondary and on the defensive side of the football too. That people need to stop getting in that Marino mentality that there's only one player on this football team. If that offense is top 10 again, we saw that a depleted defense. Listen, even if Tua was healthy, he was going to catch up to us eventually in the playoffs. We might have won the first game, but it was going to catch up to us, that defense. Now, it came on a little bit at the end there at the right time, but you could tell that defense was still going to catch up to us sooner or later.
Well, look, and we're going to be talking about trade scenarios and stuff like that. There's a move that I think the Dolphins are going to make that's well known out there, and I'm taking a lot of that into consideration when I'm saying these things about this Dolphin team, because I think that the Dolphins know the windows now. Every move they continue to make is that this window is now. They're going to shore up some needs on the offensive side of the ball, but there's a reason I don't think they're going to take a running back in the draft, because I truly believe that they are hell-bent on making Dalvin Cook a Miami Dolphin.
Yeah.
I think Dalvin Cook wants to be here, and I think that's a story that's not going to go away. And the Vikings did get Alexander Madison, and we'll see what they do in the draft, because let's just say a scenario happens when they're on the clock and they have the 24th pick, I believe, or 23rd pick, because then it's Jacksonville, then it's the Giants. And they're on the clock, and there's this guy named Bijan Robinson that's on the board. And you're the Minnesota Vikings, and he's the best player available at that point in the draft, right? Because he would be, because he's the third best player in this draft at worst. Like, they make that selection, the first thing they're going to do is call the Miami Dolphins and say, all right, let's get back into that conversation about Dalvin. So, like, I think that these are things is that, like, I don't see this roster as a completed roster. I see them adding the $13.6 million they're getting after June isn't going to be something that they're going to carry over and just sit there with. When the team's ready to make their run, that's not how they run. That's a high-quality player that's going to be added to this team. And it's going to be interesting to see how that draft board shakes out.
Or multiple depth players.
Right. It's going to be a starting offensive lineman or Dalvin Cook. That's my bet.
Yeah. What's he going to do about his the real question is, if Dalvin comes here, brother, what's he going to do about the number now that Kader Kohou has officially gone to number 4? Is he going to go back to 33, brother? Are we going to see 33 make the return? What's going to happen? Because he's going to pay Kohou, because that was his number at Florida State. He's going to want that 4. He's going to want that 4. Don't worry.
Yeah, we'll make
That's what Kohou knows what's up, so he's just getting on board early so he can see a couple hundred G's off of it, huh?
Well, let him be the first number 0 in the history of the Dolphins. How about that?
Hey, let's just hope there isn't someone out there like what's his face? Robert De Niro in The Fan. You remember Over the Number? You remember?
Not long ago, actually.
Buddy, isn't that a fantastic movie, bro?
Dude,
isn't it? It's slept on. I think it's a very underrated movie, bro.
Anything Bobby De Niro. I mean, dude, the guy goes from the most ruthless mobster of all time to Gaylord Fokker's father-in-law and Meet the Parents, and he doesn't miss a beat.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
or what were the remember Analyze This and Analyze That with Billy Crystal?
Everything, man.
Anything, you're
man.
Good, you.
Anything, man. I even watched this horrible movie called The Intern with Anne Hathaway, and he was good in that.
Well, bro, you know, I rip a lot of baseball cards, right?
Yep.
So whenever I pull because you just watched The Fan, right? So whenever I pull a Bobby Witt Jr., what do? I do the De Niro. Bobby! Remember that's what he did in The Fan, Bobby?
He is so good in that movie. That's a great movie.
Bro. It's a great movie. It's
anyone needs. Yeah, that is Wesley Snipes. And anyone who needs some good TV watching over the long
and
weekend.
Isn't Del Toro the guy who has his number that's on the team?
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
It's a good movie I have that kind of memory with is Shawshank Redemption, because I've watched it so many times.
Yeah. But it's an underrated baseball movie. That's what I think.
It's great. It's a great movie.
So, all right. Anyways, we'll see how Dalvin, if he comes here, how he's going to cook up a way to get that number from Kader Kohou.
Right.
Listen, an interesting thing for me, Neal, is in this YouTube community a couple of years ago, there was someone in this community who was telling everyone when the Patriots got Cam Newton that he was going to be the best quarterback in our division, and then Tua proceeded to have a better rookie season statistically than Cam did have a full season that year, and the rest is history. Cam has fell into the void of obscurity while Tua is coming out of MVP conversations. What are your thoughts on this? I'll play it for everyone so they can see, but I want you to watch this. This is how desperate this guy is. Look at the list of players he says he's willing to back up. Remember, this guy, Neal, what was it, a year or two ago? What was it, a year or two ago where he's telling everyone, I'm a starter, I'm not a backup? When was that, a year or two ago?
Yeah.
So how the tables have churned. But here you go, so everyone can hear what he says.
I know a lot of people have a lot of things to say in regards to my future in the NFL, and I wanted to set the record straight by saying this is how I feel. there ain't 32 guys that's better than me. But I also know that I could also be a backup, and I'm willing to be a backup. Players that I will back up. Number one, I'll back up Deshaun Watson. It goes without saying, me and Deshaun Watson's relationship, he was on my 707 All-Star team. I've grown to admire the person, the athlete that he is.
Say athlete, but I don't know about person, brother.
But I believe that's behind him. My number 2 person will be wherever Lamar Jackson decides to go. Number 3 will be Justin Fields, another C1N product. Number 4 will be Tua Tagovailoa.
He's good friends with Tua.
Number 5 will be Malik Willis, another C1N All-Star representative. And I would say there's 3 rookie quarterbacks that I would love or enjoy to groom. Any of these rookie quarterbacks, CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, and Anthony Richardson. Any one of those guys, I would be happy to back those guys up. Who we got? Number 7, Jalen Hurts. Number 8 would be Aaron Rodgers. Number 9 would be Josh Allen. And number 10 will be Sam Howell, another C1N alumni. But when you think about the list, it's really to the point. Now, some of those guys may already have penciled in backups that the franchise is probably okay with, and that's fine. I'm just voicing my opinion, and I'm just getting the narrative out.
First of all, love the Jazz selection behind his announcement. I gotta give him props. He's he's humbling himself. I just laughed at the fact that he picked like all the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL. He wants to back up with a couple of rookies sprinkled in. It's hilarious to me, bro.
I want a ring. I want to be a mentor, or I want to go somewhere that I can
get a ring,
play in time. And like, look, I like Cam Newton as a football player. I don't know about all the off the field theatrical things, but like, I don't think he's wrong when he said there's not 32 quarterbacks better than him. Look, I take Cam Newton over Mac Jones. I would.
Well, the Patriots would, then they had both.
Yeah, I don't think that I think Cam Newton's career is probably done. I really do. I don't think he's going to get signed.
Yeah.
I think when he was on the football field, he was a warrior. He made Carolina relevant. I could give him all the props in the world, but man, he took a beating. And he took a beating, man. And like, I don't think his body is ready to, you know what I mean? I just think he had a hell of a career.
Number 28, I'll back up Zappy because he was doing the number 10.
Oh
my God.
No,
did you see that video going around? I forgot to ask you when we were talking about Mac earlier. That's what I forgot to ask you about. Did you see that video going around Twitter of them asking all the Red Sox and the Patriots fans about what they want about Mac Jones?
It was all Zappy?
It was all Zappy or Lamar.
Wow.
They were calling Mac a bum. Like, they were just I was like, oh, my God.
Well,
Did Dolphin fans turn to New England fans?
My least favorite beat writer in the world writes for the Patriots.
What's his face?
Ben.
Yeah, Volan. Yeah, he's an idiot.
Yeah, I love nothing more to see that guy spend so much time worrying about our team, our quarterback. And
didn't he used to write for the Dolphins? That's why, right?
I think he misses us, and it's okay. But I'm good with what we have. I don't think we're going to roster the 3 quarterbacks we have right now. They're all going to make the team. So
which I don't like. I'll be honest with you.
We're not quarterback shopping. And at the end of the day, the guy who I was kind of surprised wasn't on that list was Joe Burrow
or Herbert.
Yeah, well, because Burrow has gotten hurt right in the past, and like that's a team where you think if you believe in yourself, that's a team with the weapons on the outside.
Yeah,
they've really shored up the offensive line this offseason. Like that's a place that I personally would be like number 1 on my list if I was a guy looking to be a quarterback.
Why didn't he say Matt Corral, Carolina?
Right. Who I don't even know who they're going to start because they
drew and draft someone.
Yeah.
But look at how quickly they give up on these kids. Everyone waited to draft these guys, and then every team except Pittsburgh looks like they're giving, and Washington looked like they're giving up on their guys.
Well, I think that's one of the things, man. Like everybody, when you think about replacing the quarterback that you have on your team, has these visions that you're going to get Patrick Mahomes, but more than likely you're going to get Malik Willis. More than likely you're not going to get a Patrick Mahomes. You know what I mean? Like that's where it's like sometimes you just got to exhale and appreciate what you have because the grass isn't always greener, and it's hard to find a good starting quarterback in the NFL right now. It really is, and it's a lot of things about perception and how people view the game. Like, you know, you can find data on Google to support any argument you have, but at the end of the day, Cam Newton's probably going to be sitting home for the rest of his career. He had a hell of a career.
Did at the peak.
I appreciate him mentioning Tua. You're not coming to Miami, buddy. Christian Wilkins going to snatch that chain off you again.
Oh, maybe that's why he wants to come. He wants
Right.
to throw a gator in the shower. And then another, you know, I don't know how relevant it is now, but we talked about it earlier. Well, we alluded to it earlier. So Drew Rosenhaus was on Pat McAfee, and let's play this clip, and then we'll talk about, because he's going to mention how the Miami Dolphins almost traded for Darren Waller, which makes sense considering the Frank Smith connection.
Darren Waller just signed a deal. Hey, he just signed a deal, and he's a guy. And we were just talking with Eli Manning, and Bruce Brown asked the question, who's a diehard Giants fan. Eli, he said, it feels like Darren Waller's the best weapon we've had since Plexico Burress, maybe. Like, that's an immediate upgrade for the Giants or whatever. But he just gets married in Vegas. Was the wedding thing a part of it? And how long had that been brewing? And how easy of a deal is that to make whenever Darren Waller's potentially available to the rest of the NFL?
So you're right. We had two clients that were traded this offseason in very high-profile trades. DJ Moore went from the Panthers to the Bears as part of the trade for the number 1 overall pick. And Darren Waller was traded from the Raiders to the Giants for a third-round pick. We'll talk first about Darren's deal. The Raiders were in negotiations last year to trade Darren. Darren was very nearly traded last offseason. And so that relationship –
to who?
Well, I think the Packers and the Dolphins were very interested in Darren at that time.
You think?
But the trade didn't happen. The Raiders pulled back, I think, right before those deals could get done.
We got to talk about
now,
that.
with that being said, Pat, Darren did sign a contract last offseason, right before the season started, correct myself, where he became the highest paid tight end. So much respect to the Raiders for doing that. Darren had 2 years left on his deal, and they made him the highest paid tight end in NFL history.
After
that
shopping,
was impressive.
After shopping him, that's a good deal. Hey, Drew,
Wow.
All right, that's not an easy
it
deal.
worked out.
All right. So let's talk about this for a sec. So let's because that you're muted. You're muted.
How high is AJ Hawk in those videos?
I know, but let's talk about this for a sec. They were going to use that Gesicki money, and they were going to pair Darren Waller with Tyreek Hill, because that deal would have just replaced Gesicki's money. That wouldn't affect the deal for Tyreek Hill.
Well, you know,
these guys were trying to.
That tells me that tight end's definitely going to be on their radar. And you know, I'm actually happy that we didn't trade for Darren Waller, and I might be in the minority here, but his cap hit jumps up to $14.5 million next year, and that guy misses a lot of time.
He has recently,
and he's developed into a really good tight end. I mean, he's probably right on the
top 5 when he's healthy.
Yeah, he's definitely a top 5 when healthy tight end. But at the end of the day, I think the draft is where we're going to get that tight end. And that's why a lot of us that are predicting a tight end for Miami. Hint, hint, my mock draft and my draft guide that launches officially next week has Miami selecting a tight end in the second round, a guy that we all like. But I think that's impressive that the Dolphins, Chris Greer is always doing business, man. He's always trying to make that move. That is why I am so confident there's another move coming for the Dolphins, because that guy explores every option. And he doesn't always hit, and he can't find an offensive lineman in the draft to save his life.
Yeah.
But man, do I appreciate his hustle when it comes to turning over every rock and every player. Because of that, we got Tyreek Hill. Because of that, we got Bradley Chubb. Because of that, we got Jalen Ramsey. Like, him turning these rocks. Whenever you hear a player, the Dolphins are somehow involved. Like, how can you not love that about your football team?
Love it.
That they're so dedicated to getting better, and they're looking for sure commodities, which is to the point where we think about the draft, and we said this last week, Darnell Washington falls to the top of round 2, say, you think the Dolphins will hesitate to move up? I don't. I don't think they'll hesitate to go get their man. This is a little bit different than how they used to do business. And I think when Brian Flores was the coach, there wasn't always harmony between him and Chris Greer.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes that led to some picks that we probably want to pull the trigger on. The Noah Benogany pick screams. The Dolphins had turned in their draft card to select DeAndre Swift. It was turned in before made official. They accepted a trade with the Packers, moved down, got a 4th-round pick, and took Noah Benogany.
But, okay, so explain that. Why? That makes no sense. Why wouldn't you just, because DeAndre was still on the board?
Because a legitimate – I don't get it either. But you know how – I don't know if everyone who's our listeners know, but if you get on Twitter on draft night, I don't do it because it ruins the draft for me. You will see the picks announced 30 seconds before you see them on TV. And you'll see people running and breaking them. And I hate that because I like in the draft sitting there with my stomach and getting turned over, making sure we're taking Tua Tagovailoa in 2020. You know what I mean? Like that's part of the draft to me is that anticipation. But you can see it, and it was announced that we had drafted DeAndre Swift, and I have it on my other computer. So later next week I'll revisit and see who posted it. But it was a done deal, and then they moved back to get draft picks. And I think what happened between that time reason is that Brian Flores got
in the ear.
Yeah. And that's where it's a little bit different. There's a harmony between Mike McDaniel and Chris Greer. They're saying we could do this better together than we could do working opposite of each other.
Yeah, I agree.
And I actually see our front office working like an NFL front office.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't do that for almost 15 years. Like we didn't work like a real NFL team because we didn't understand how to establish the clear organizational chart where people had specific roles. That's been fixed. The owner no longer seems like he's sticking his hands into the pot. It's a Mike McDaniel, Chris Greer, and Chris Greer's colleagues, Melvin Allen, all those guys. It's kind of a team effort reason. And that's why you're seeing the Dolphins get as good as anybody in the NFL when it comes to personnel decisions right now.
Yeah, I agree.
Ever since the 2021 draft, when we got Waddle, Phillips, and Javon Holland, there has not been a better team in football at acquiring draft picks, acquiring talent, and taking your roster from something that was laughable. When I had Jason Sanders as our 7th best player on our team, now Jason Sanders is probably the 50th best player on this team. And that was very important, the way they built this roster. And, I see that there's drastic. There's people that say Chris Greer is killing it. There's people that say he's not. You got to give the guy his due, man. He has done an amazing job since 2021. And that's why I'm more excited about this season than I've been in forever. Because I know how committed they are to this now. They're committed to the plan. A lot of people, they had a lot of opportunity to fall off the plan, but they stayed committed to the plan. And the franchises that do that win, and they win when it matters.
And that's really the last step. See, the last step is because even our vets who have been around, because we don't have a lot of playoff experience as a team, we haven't learned how to win yet. And that first playoff win is going to be so key because, we've brought in players that know how to win and that have won. But pretty much as a collective, we've got a lot of players on this team who don't know how to win yet at this, or haven't won yet at this big level. And that matters, man, especially in crunch time.
Even in a losing effort, that playoff game against Buffalo told me so much about this football team, man. I like that made me realize that this team's for real. They kind of limped into the playoffs. They could have easily got their asses kicked in Buffalo. But I'd even dare say that they're almost a better team that day. Obviously, with the 3rd string, 7th round rookie quarterback, it's really hard to go win on the road in the NFL, let alone in Buffalo, let alone in the playoffs, let alone in the freezing cold.
Yeah.
What I saw was our young players take that leap. And a guy that I know gets crapped on a lot for the trade was Bradley Chubb, but Bradley Chubb was so good in that playoff game, man. He was so good. And this team, I mean, you and I, Reason, we try to be as objective as we can. I think we both have a little bit of optimism in this team. I don't know about you, but this is the best I felt about a Miami Dolphins team definitely in the post Dan Marino era, maybe ever.
Yeah, man. I mean, I haven't been this excited for a team to hit the field in quite some time. I mean, you got to go back to those teams where, Fiedler was manning when we were just missing the quarterback.
Oh,
right?
Man. That was a missed opportunity. That was the missed opportunity of this franchise. That defense was Zach, Jason, Madison, Surtain, Brock Marion, Trace Armstrong, Gardner Bowens. You know what I mean? They even brought in Junior Seau. They had Robert Jones at linebacker. I mean, that team was ready, man. They actually had a solid offensive line. Chris Chambers really came onto the scene fast. They had like the James McKnights, the Aronde Gadsdens of the world. But, that was before the NFL was this massive passing league that it's become. Alindo Mare was a really good kicker. I mean, that was a team, man, that should have won a Super Bowl. I really believe. I mean, you remember the year when the Titans were supposed to be the Mac Daddy, Sunday Night Football. Zach had that pick 6, and we went into Tennessee and whipped them. Like, that was the year that I think the Dolphins should have got a Lombardi.
You know what's funny, bro? I'm just looking right now, and I found this tweet from just because you got my check this out. I don't know who this guy was, but he's confirming what you said because you must have seen it on Twitter. You'll find the tweet, I'm sure you will, because you said you got on your thing. But let's look at this, just scrolling back. So 12:10 a.m. Eastern on April 24th. So after night 1. Dov Kleiman had tweeted out with the 32nd overall pick of the Clyde Edwards-Helaire to the Chiefs, right? Look at what Bobby Noricki said. Oh, boy, I feel bad for DeAndre Swift. Was supposed to get drafted at 26 by the Dolphins and ends up not going and getting drafted in the first round at all.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean that's the guy who would have seen it on Twitter, right?
Right. Yeah, and I'll find it because I
do remember that being on Twitter. I remember that being on Twitter. So
yeah, well, my cousin comes
now. The thing that wasn't on Twitter was what we know about how the talks they were in to go acquire Tristan Wirfs, right?
Yeah, oh, man, could have, should have.
Which they over 406 people in the room. Smash that like button.
Yeah, nice, man. Thanks, guys, for joining us in the. But no, I mean, yeah, man, I like we're creeping on the official, time for the draft here. I mean, like the tight ends, man. That's what's catching my attention. Reason. I've dug into Sam Laporta a lot. And I think that is the selection for this football team.
Bro, I see Dolphin fans trying to nitpick them. And they listen, I try to explain. This is what I'm trying to explain to Dolphin fans, especially looking at tight end. Because everyone's trying to focus in on blocking, right?
Yeah, I don't know why we've become so obsessed with tight ends blocking.
But people need to start looking at this. There's separate listen, this is what I try to explain to people. There's two different types of prospects when it comes to that at tight end. You got guys who don't have the functional core strength, and then you got guys that do, and they are willing and they are capable, but they need to be cleaned up technique-wise. So you got to ask yourself, and this is how I'll tell you how I view it, but you got to ask yourself, what do you trust more? Your coaching staff to coach up a guy who needs technique cleaned up, he's got everything else needed, the will and the power, or do you want a guy who, yeah, he's got the technique, but he don't got the core strength, so now you got to trust the player to hit the gym, to build his body properly, and to get that core functional strength. So I would trust my coaching staff a lot more than individually trust. And maybe this is Mike Gesicki, fall off. But I would trust the coaching staff more than I would trust a player. And Sam Laporta, he's got the core strength. He's willing. He's capable. He just needs some technique cleanup. That's all he did. A guy like Dalton Kincaid scares the hell out of me because he's arguably the best receiver. But you talk about a man who will get pushed around at the next level.
He's like
but he's a better receiver than Mike Gesicki, way better receiver.
Well, I would say this. I think the number one tight end on the Dolphins board is going to be Darnell Washington.
Yeah.
But I think Darnell, look,
and then Marin Laporta are probably 2 and 3, however you want to flip it.
Well, and I have Laporta. My final verdict on him is that he's a blend between Owen Daniels and Mark Andrews, and that's what I see in his game. And look, Mark Andrews is a top 3 tight end in football, and Owen Daniels to me was a multi-time Pro Bowler that was a really good football player in his prime that injuries got him. But I like Michael Mayer, another guy. We're talking about these guys. I mean, there's guys that won't be like Brenton Strain, Zach Kuntz. We have Braden Willis from Oklahoma is another guy. I mean, there's guys that are. This is a great tight end class. I think that's got to be on the radar here, man. Like,
yeah,
I don't know about you, man. Like, if we came out of day 2 with only Darnell Washington, I'm still ecstatic. If we come out with Sam Laporta and an offensive lineman, I'm ecstatic. You know what I mean? I think that having a good tight end is really going to be the next gear for this offense. And
but I also see why they might not be stressing it at 51, because historically tight ends take about 2 to 3 years to develop. So they might be looking. That's why they might be looking at a Matthew Bergeron, or maybe they think DeJuan Jones is going to fall there. Maybe they think someone like that's going to be there at 51. They're going to move on, and then at 84 they go after, because they don't have. You could get Strange or Kuntz probably in the early 100s, but because you don't have a pick. Or if a Tucker Kraft falls there. I know they really love Tucker Kraft.
There's another good player. Yeah, and they've had meetings with him, so we know that.
Imagine if you came out with Matthew Bergeron, or let's say you came out with DeJuan from Ohio State, and you came out with DeJuan, and let's say you came out with Tucker Kraft. I'd be very, very happy with that.
Oh, my God. I mean, DeJuan, spoiler, DeJuan Jones is on my big board in the top 15. Like, my comp for him is Orlando Brown Jr. I love DeJuan Jones. Yeah. So I'm with you, man. But no, it's fun. I mean, look, the Dolphins are staying busy. They're shaping this roster out. We know that they have some flexibility coming with the cap. We know that they have their eye on Dalvin Cook. It's been very widely reported. Barry Jackson's confirmed it. It seemed like I've heard that it was so close to happening, and that kind of like Drew Rosenhaus just said about Waller, the Dolphins thought they had him kind of, and then the Vikings at the last kind of hours like, wait, we're really going to trade Dalvin Cook here? Let us hold off for a second. But yeah, man, we'll see. I mean,
we're getting there.
It's fully draft season, right? Like,
yeah. So, all right, guys. We're gonna get out of here. I appreciate all of y'all joining us for a little bit of your Friday night. I'm gonna be back this weekend with my tackle big board. If you haven't already, we dropped the tight end big board on Monday, and then a couple weeks ago we dropped the running back big board. Then after tackle, I am going to be dropping linebacker, and then Patreons and channel members will pick the final 5th big board, which I've already got started on it because I think they're going to pick interior defensive line. So, guys, I will see y'all later this weekend. Until then, thank you, everyone, for diving fin too deep with me and Neal. We'll see y'all on the next one. As always, until then, fins up all day, every day, guys.